Daily Detroit is brought to you by the community. Support our work at patreon.com/dailydetroit.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to your Daily Detroit. It is Tuesday, June 3rd, 2025. I am Jer Stays, and no, I will not be subjecting you to my broken voice for the entire episode. I am hoarse after going to the Mackinac Policy Conference and Ferndale Pride, and still kind of recovering. But I wanted to get this conversation out there about I-375 as there's a community meeting coming up this week. So I hope you get something out of this conversation with the Rethink I-375 Community Coalition and the points that they raise about the project and what they'd like to see happen. Feedback, as always, dailydetroit@gmail.com. And let's go up to the island. Joining me at the table at the Mackinac Policy Conference is two people from Rethink I-375. To my left, Carl Bentley, and to my right, Olga, Stella. Both of you, welcome to Daily Detroit.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Appreciate being here, Jer.
Oh, it's my pleasure to have you both. So the I-375 project, for those who are just following the story, this has been a vision that has been talked about for a number of years to convert I-375 into some sort of boulevard, or, make a transformation of it in somehow other than necessarily just replacing the bridges or doing exactly what was there. When I've talked to state officials in the past, they tell me something has to be done because the way I-375 was originally designed is outdated for modern standards. What that is has been the question. So we've discussed this from a number of angles, but for listeners, for Rethink I-375, what's the project as you see it?
You're right, Jared. This project has been talked about for many years, and a lot of the community engagement about the project, 10 years ago, it was really focused solely on the I-375 part where the multiple bridges, the Lafayette Bridge, the Larned Bridge, Jefferson, need to be repaired, and then to replacing those with the boulevard. However, during the pandemic, MDOT started looking at, slightly before the pandemic, the interchange. So that I-75 to I-375 interchange has also been redesigned. And that is actually the biggest part of this new project, because the project that they ultimately got approved in 2021 during the pandemic was really an interchange project where when you're coming down 75 or coming north, from south of downtown, when you get to those ramps that take you to Gratiot or take you on up to North 75, all of that is going to be completely reformed and changed. And I think that's where a lot of the community concerns come from, because of the implications of this whole totally new interchange on Gratiot, on Eastern Market, on Brush Park. And then the implications it has for the kind of boulevard that we end up having on the Lafayette Park side.
And so listeners know both of you live in or near the community, correct?
That's right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
For many, many years in different parts. So Carl's a little bit more affected by some of the changes up north in the northern part of the project. I'm a little bit more affected by changes in the southern side.
Yeah, I live right at Hyde Park, and we walk to Eastern Market very easily now, within 5 to 7 minutes. This will add probably another 5 to maybe 10 minutes, depending on how the final configuration, is prepared.
So I've gotten a number of questions about this from listeners. So is your position that the whole project's a bad idea, or are you are there portions of it that you like, or?
First off, I think, to be honest with you, I was against the whole project to begin with. But after, reading more information about it and understanding the danger of that interchange at I-375 and 75 going north, that curve, okay, even coming southbound, that's pretty dangerous angle to come in at the speeds that people typically travel. So I just give you that backdrop from the perspective that I now understand why this is important, okay? And the project originally started as a reparative justice project, okay, because of the history of how the the original project was that put I-375 there. It ripped out the communities of African Americans and other populations that had rooted there from the South and other parts of the world actually, and it was a little haven for them. They had built large businesses and whatnot. So the initial was that this was going to be a reparative and restorative justice project, and thus far, I know Olga, myself, and some others, we're still looking for that as what does that really mean? Okay. And then the other piece that I just want to throw out there is a project like this. Okay. They say it's 3 to 5 years. Reality is probably going to be 5 to 7. And the population that lives in that general area, they're more mature. Okay. And there's all types of health issues associated with the dust that the concrete's going to, have there, that no one's talking about any of that. So these are just a couple of things that, we kind of chat about that we need to understand more of how this project is really going to be supportive of the community. And then there's, what happens with all the land. There's 30 acres that's going to be created that's green space. No one's talking about that.
Well, I mean, I've seen some renderings for ideas for what they would do there. I mean, I've been shared a lot of renderings over the years.
Yeah, and so some of those are just illustrative, right? But the reality is the way this project was rushed through the pandemic, many critical components were not thought through, and the community was not engaged in that design at all. And so there are issues both with the physical design of the project, but then one of these issues is this new land that is developed both by Eastern Market and in the Lafayette Park Greektown area. The city is only now doing a land use and zoning study now, right? We're months away from early works construction beginning this fall, and only now are they talking about the land. And the reality is that land is not going to be developed or disposed of until the project is completed, whenever that might be, 4 years from now, 5 years from now, or longer, probably given how construction goes. I think we've all experienced MDOT construction, right? And so a lot of the kind of community enhancements, these reparative things that are mandated in the green sheet for the federal approval for this project, they all pivot on the sale of this land and funds being generated from the land. Well, what if through all of this, it's determined those are not the land not to be sold? It's going to become green space or something else, and are no funds. How does any of this get paid for? And a number of these kinds of questions are listed in the concerns in the approval for this. And now we're going on 2 years of the project being developed, many questions still unanswered. It's still the main thing that binds most of the members of the Rethink Coalition together is definitely people who want the project killed. They don't see the value for it, and they just would like MDOT to replace what's there. I think both Carl and I come from backgrounds where we've seen the power of investment in our city. And, I'm not a pro highway person. I'm an urban development person, right?
I'll be honest, one of my Patreon members sent in the question that, well, if this project is killed, they're moving out of Lafayette Park. Because one of the reasons they moved there is seeing a project, they wanted to be connected to downtown.
Yeah.
Right? So it's not all one voice with this one.
Of course not.
And I think the other thing, having done reporting on this some years ago, and this was years ago, those bridges over I-375 have been a disaster for years.
MDOT should do its job. MDOT should do its job.
Yes.
So
don't disagree with that.
Is there an alternative vision for that interchange, or is the idea that you, at the end of the day, really would want to replace what's there?
No. So I think the Downtown Detroit Partnership received funding from the Kresge Foundation. They hired Tool Engineering, world-class freeway, transportation engineers. There are alternative designs for the interchange that are far simpler, far easier to navigate, less costly. And also the same thing with the boulevard, a more narrow, more pedestrian-friendly boulevard that does more to create the kind of development that your Patreon member is talking about. This current design is not a design for a major American city. It's a design for maybe more rural or suburban. Even as we're going through this land use planning process now, like 2 years too late, they're finding that maybe some of these plots of land that are being developed cannot actually be redeveloped for the kinds of uses that people in the community want. So what we want, and what we've been asking for over a year now, is a change in leadership of the project. We want the land use framework to be completed so that we can have a powerful vision for the future that then drives other decisions like the road design. And we want real community engagement where the businesses and the residents can really participate, share their ideas. And we know, we like most of the people that in the neighborhood, these are people who've been around for a long time. They know we can't get everything we want. They know that different interests are going to have different needs. The casino needs something different than Ford Field needs and a resident needs. But it's MDOT's job to mediate those interests, to help us all understand what everybody needs, and to come up with a solution that works for everyone.
Now, are there any concerns that by delaying the project more, that the money might go away? There's so much thought. People don't know, right? And there's been so much thought about funding being pulled from things for various items, and I don't think the public knows one way or another, right? Because there's so much conversation around that, right?
Right. Of course, there's concern. I mean, administrations change, thought processes change, directions change. So, I mean, that's a possibility. Okay, but at the same time, okay, I mean, it should be done right. We shouldn't be just doing it for the sake of doing it to spend the money. Okay, let's do it right. I've heard several people and read where, that's how we got to the point where we are today with the interchange as it is, because it was rushed through. I mean, they just eminent domain people's property, okay, to get the road built. Let's not do that again, okay? Let's do it the right way. Engage the community, engage them the right way, okay? Understand what the community should have there, okay, to bridge the east side to downtown, all right? And let's move forward with the project that way, as opposed to, this is what I think you all should have. No.
You've both been around these kind of projects before. What are we actually talking about here as far as timeline to do this in your view the right way?
Well, it's not so much the timeline as it is like the process of what happens in the meetings that MDOT holds and how MDOT communicates. MDOT has said that they need to start, this project needs to start construction next year. So in many ways, time is running out for the design of the project and to get some of these really important questions answered. So it needs to happen now. It needs to happen fast. They have more than enough resources. We go to meetings. It's a room full of consultants.
Say, pull the trigger back and wait another 4 years or something.
No. I mean,
okay, because I think that's a lot of pushback that I'm hearing, where it's like, oh, we want to wait. Let's kill this thing by putting it in the mud.
No, we've never said that.
No.
And in fact, what we said was, hurry up, get the land use. We asked them to start the land use planning a year ago.
Yep,
Hurry up and start the land use planning. Let the land use vision, let a powerful vision for the future drive the design. They have taken their time to do their job. It is not the community's fault that they have not repaired those bridges. It's not the community's fault they haven't managed the complexity of this project to a conclusion. But what we can't have is we cannot have hundreds of millions of dollars spent on something that's actually going to be worse than what we have now. And I think that's the thing. It's not like they're going to just fix this a couple of years from now. Once it's built, and it's probably around for 50, 60, 70 years.
Well, that's the track record of the last one.
Right.
So do it right. And they have the resources. They have, and if they need help, I know there are those. We've offered feedback about how the community engagement could be improved. And we look forward to seeing MDOT take us up on that feedback.
We've offered, I know Olga and I, we sat through, several different, discussions where we've offered our time to sit with them to, kind of walk through what that planning would look like. And we're more than prepared to do that. But there's been nothing, for them to take us up on it.
Yeah.
And as Olga said earlier, I think there has been a leadership change, right, at the state level. That's progress, but not, no conversations.
What I would encourage, especially for your listeners, on June 5th, MDOT is having a community meeting. It's at the Eastern and Eastern Market. We're hopeful that they will talk about some of the project leadership changes and answer some of these questions about how they will maybe reset the we're not, because when we asked for a pause, it was really on pausing designing the road. They would ask us things about the width of the sidewalk or the color of the concrete, and we're like, but what's it going next to? Like, what's it for? Well, we haven't done the land use yet. Well, then please stop working on the lampposts and let's figure out what this is going to be a road for.
And talking about, say, the number of lanes and the through traffic, because the current proposal as it stands, what does it look like?
Well, they've reduced, one of the things we were able to do is they redid their traffic studies. So they've reduced the boulevard from 9 lanes to 6 lanes. So it's slightly less bad than Telegraph. Yay. Still pretty wide. And, one of the things that we've asked them to do is to really articulate all the concerns they've heard from the community and help us understand how they're addressing them, because the community has said Gratiot is too wide, Jefferson is too wide. These are streets we're scared to cross. Why are they building another road that's too wide?
I mean, East Jefferson can be Frogger.
Oh, yeah.
Without a doubt. And, I think this is a really interesting perspective, because I know that people have a lot of feelings about this because they want this project. They want Detroit to feel like a city as opposed to a suburban feeling thoroughfare,
Yeah.
And I think that's the energy when people hear that, like, hey, we want to take a pause or something like that. I think that really gets people concerned. They're like, oh my gosh, we've talked about this for so many years.
Yeah.
We should just get it through already. But it's very interesting to hear this perspective, as far as like connecting these things together. And I really appreciate that. So who's got to make the decision? What's the timeline? You said there's this June 5th event. Like, are you calling on MDOT to make the decision? Like, who needs to make the call here to get this changed?
Ultimately, it's MDOT. I mean, it's MDOT's project and MDOT's responsibility. And the city of Detroit does have an important role around the land use and the zoning. At the end of the day, a commission appointed by the next governor and the next mayor will decide how the land is disposed of. So that's not something that will happen, anytime soon. There's still an opportunity for lots of community and voices to get involved. What MDOT has said is, they're only, I think, at 30%. They're doing a special kind of design process called a progressive design build, where they're supposed to be designing and tweaking it as they build it. And so I think we're hopeful that this summer, if the city land use is completed, if there's some of these leadership changes at MDOT, if they're able to kind of reset the way that they work with the community, we can start to see some positive traction on the myriad of concerns. And they're not all just the road design, but many of the things Carl has brought up around the environmental mitigation, the traffic, traffic detours and how people are going to access. We don't want to see the businesses in Greektown go out of business.
Well, they're already dealing with the Monroe. They're already dealing with the Monroe reconstruction right now.
That's a test run for them.
Right. MDOT we're just a bunch of residents, right? Like we're not resourced. We're just trying to figure out how to work within their process. And the reality is they have a lot of resources. They can do better.
Yeah.
And that's
there's
what
another
we've been
little
asking
project
them.
out there. I think Gratiot. Right?
Oh yeah, the Gratiot
redesign. They're going to put a medium there. So how's that going to sync up? With the environment?
Because Gratiot does have speed issues, but how do you address those? Right.
Right. In a way that's pedestrian friendly,
Right.
Yeah. So all of these things, at the end of the day, that's what we're really calling on MDOT to do, is to help bring these projects together, bring these different, stakeholder interests together, and then create like the best possible project, knowing that there's lots of different needs and interests, and then execute it in a way that, they've used, as Carl brought, they've in all the press releases on this project when it was approved, all about Black Bottom and honoring Black Bottom. There's yet to be anything substantive that has come out of this project that will do any of that. And I think what people want is more than a historical marker. So there's just a lot. This is on MDOT's plate to figure out, and we just hope they move fast, that they work with the community, and we get some positive momentum forward.
They move in a direction that gives the people the voice that we're asking for, and that is, be a part of the design, be a part of the restorative justice part, be a part of how we're going to live for the next 50, 60, 70 years.
That's right.
Well, I really appreciate this. If people want to know more about Rethink I-375 or even ask you questions themselves, especially if they're in the area, what can they do?
They can email highwaybyanothername@gmail.com or go to our website, rethinki375.org.
Awesome. Well, Carl Bentley, Olga, Stella, thank you so much for your time on Daily Detroit. I appreciate you both.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you, Jer.